All right, so I will call the meeting to order. It is 7:04 p.m. And I will start with an opening statement. I've shared it with the board. I've edited it since I've shared it a little bit with you guys. So please bear with me because it's long. Good evening, everyone. Welcome back after a long stretch of almost 3 weeks off, which is almost a record for this board. I want to start by thanking Frank Barodi for incorporating the Lime School Spanish program into his trip to the Dominican Republic. There's a nice blurb about it on the school website. At the last board meeting where people shared comments, many things were said that I believe were based on false information or were said to hurt people. It's unfortunate because neither of these are productive and they incite problems rather than move towards solutions. So once again, I ask that all public comments be related to an agenda item and that comments remain civil and respectful. For this meeting, you'll likely notice that there's no staff or LEA comment. This is an intentional temporary change to encourage comments for the board to come through the proper channels through the superintendent as per policy. I look forward to the upcoming meetings with leadership of the LEA, myself and Jen Williston, as suggested and facilitated by Frank, to actively work on where the misunderstandings lie so that we can work collaboratively as well, so that we all have the same good intentions. One of the speakers at the last meeting spoke of the Lime School values, and so I just wanted to address them. These values have been adopted by the school, and as nice as it would be for the board to be obligated to follow them, we don't have to, but we choose to. We have a board ethics acknowledgement that we all signed, and we follow the obligations set by the state statutes of providing an education in a safe environment to the students of Lyme, provide it with a budget that's fiscally responsible that the town can support, write policies which the employees within the follow, and to hire a superintendent to enforce all of this. But again, the board has been following the Lime School values, and so I wanted to just defend the board in how, in my opinion, they have demonstrated this. So number one is fairness. And of course, I went according to FAIRPICC from last year's song because that's how I remember them. So fairness, board members are not allowed to respond to public comment, even when inaccuracies and insults are thrown at them. We listen patiently to everyone, we weigh all information, and then we vote in public. Acceptance of others. The board does not always agree, and yet we're always moving forward, accepting each other's opinions and supporting the decisions made. We are currently on our second interim superintendent this year. It's unfortunate that Dr. Cascadden felt unwelcome, felt that she was not accepted at our school, although it did bring us Dr. Brody. As we continue our transition in leadership, I'm confident that there will be disagreements, but that the board will accept them and agree to disagree as we have done. And I hope that the school staff and public will join us in this. Integrity. At the last meeting in particular, but over and over, this board has shown integrity in sitting and taking it. Insults to character, insinuations that we have no values, and suggestions that we disregard the expertise of the school's personnel. The board has not inserted any opinions, the content of what is being taught or how it's being taught. In fact, the academic committee has been converted to a school-based committee. We should hold high that the integrity of this board has not faltered through the numerous accusations. Number 4 is responsibility. The board has shouldered more responsibility in this past year, but even in the first few weeks within this configuration, attending 4 or 5 meetings in a week shows the dedication that this board has had to the responsibility that's been taken on. Furthermore, in a time where we have interim leadership and the SAU is overwhelmed with work, conducting 2 simultaneously is not easy. The board has dedicated themselves to ensuring that they help, even though it's not our job, and even when we're accused of overreaching. Community members are welcome to come and volunteer to help to ease these burdens rather than criticizing the efforts being made. Perseverance. If we didn't have this, we would have all walked out by now. I have contemplated it myself several times because being treated with disrespect, the way I interpret it, isn't fun. I know that several spouses of board members have encouraged the same, but the choice to persevere because we care and we see potential in what our school can achieve. Individuality. We all came to the board with different backgrounds. We have different reasons for being here, and we bring different attributes. We've not insisted that we know more in the field of education, but we offer different perspectives, ones that might be considered to bring a fresh voice, and ideally the voice of the community. Once again, we don't agree, we don't always agree, but we listen to each other and we respect those different opinions. Compassion. Though hard to see when you're not provided accurate information, compassion comes through when we stay to really talk about the hard decisions. It comes through when we sacrifice our time away from our families, even on the weekends, to help move things forward so that things can run a bit smoother. It's been suggested to me that we call votes faster, that we have everyone speak just once and then we call the vote. By striving for some more consensus and understanding the rationale behind people's decisions, we can agree to disagree. And I see that as compassion. Courage. At this point, there might not be a more courageous position than one that's on a school board. That's not how it should be. And certainly if the misinformation campaigns continue in line, there will not be people willing to do it. So I ask everyone to learn about the issues before calling out the board. We are all approachable. We can speak in our own voice, though not on behalf of the school board. We can explain things better in a conversation than we can during a board meeting. The accusations that seem to come from misinformation are not productive to you, to the board, or to the long-term vision of the school. They're also poisoning our kids. And whether you know and acknowledge it or not, kids hear all of this and it affects them and their relationships with their peers. If for any other reason, that should be enough to have it stop. We have an amazing school, an amazing staff, amazing students, all supported by an amazing community. It's why we live here and why we choose to do so. We are all on the same team, so please let's make sure that we keep that in mind. Like the class of 2021 sang, we're all in this together. It's the number one thing that will pull us through all of our obstacles. And so to wrap up, I actually want to change subjects a little bit, and I want to thank the PTO for the lovely artist in residence mural that now adorns the hallway off the main lobby. Special thanks to Emily Girdwood, who led the effort in the weeks leading up to it, and with Elise Foxall, Tom Harkins, Rachel Stanton, and Jen Wilcox at the school, Sarah Glass for hosting and feeding the artist, and to Sarah Vargo, Bridget Cameron, the co-chairs of the PTO, who tied off all the loose ends all over the place and helped make it a success. And lastly, Amy Ricker and the O'Donnell family for helping with food as well. I'm sure there are others who contributed, so thank you to everyone. As a former PTO member, I encourage all the parents listening to consider getting involved in PTO. It can be as much or as little as you choose, and it's a wonderful way to get to know what's really happening in our school and to meet others, especially as we open up our lives once again. Thank you. So with that, I apologize for being so long. And so with that, I would like to open it up for public comment. Is there any public who'd like to comment?
Eric has a comment.
I can read it to, yeah, Eric wrote, thank you to all who serve as board members and those who have served in the previous years. We elected you to lead, and I'm grateful for the service you have given us in these uniquely challenging times. Is there any other comment?
Line community member, just taking off the LEA comment from the agenda is concerning to me. It's a way for the Education Association, which represents the teachers, to bring forward issues to the board, but also to the community. And so having that removed is concerning.
Thank you, Sarah. All right. Seeing no further public comments, I would like to, so next item is to changes to agenda. I did add one since the posting of this, which is the faculty enrollment request. There's 3 of them.
You have a hand up, actually.
Oh, I do have a hand up.
Yeah.
I didn't see that.
Are they print? They print.
Oh, Lee, go ahead.
Hi, I just wanted a point of clarification because someone just mentioned the part taken off of the agenda. Is there an opportunity for the teachers union and or faculty and staff to make comment at this meeting? I don't know if they're allowed to during public comment or if it's later in the report section, it says something. So just, I'm just asking if there is a point in the meeting where staff members and faculty are free to make comments. Thank you.
Want to respond to that?
Well, I think as it might relate to a specific agenda item that's on there, the same as, you know, the public. But the hope is that items that, at least from my point of view, the hope is that items that relate to the relationship between the school board, the teachers union, the school administration, and the staff that works through internal channels, that they often affect negotiations and working conditions. And it's not really, this is not an appropriate forum to really do those kinds of things that should really be. And that's why we're trying to set up an alternative place so that certainly the staff around educational school issues, they talk to their principal and to Elise, who then can bring them to the board directly or to me and then to the board around school issues, around if it's a curriculum item or need to purchase or that kind of thing. That we're the avenue for those things. They don't need to come directly from the teachers to the board. That there is a chain of command responsibility that's there. For those things that could affect contracts, working conditions, relationships between the two entities, that's why we're establishing this leadership meetings where we can have very open, frank conversations that remain confidential because they reflect on confidential kinds of issues. So that's so that, yes, opportunity for input, just in a little different format from the past.
Or any other public comment? All right, so seeing none, we'll move to the changes in the agenda. I did add one last thing at the very end, which was a faculty enrollment request. There's 3 of them, which I've shared the information to the board. And then the one other thing that I was wondering, Frank, if you would be willing to do the progress of the technology after we do minutes.
Sure, whatever.
We could do that earlier.
Yeah, wherever you would
I
like.
think people are probably eager to hear that. So moving forward with minutes. Do I have a motion to approve March 3rd and April 2nd public and non-public minutes as a slate?
So second.
So moved by Greenway, seconded by Burke. Is there any discussion?
In the 3:30 public minutes, if you go to number 12, it says, it's confusing. It says one amendment from a 0.5 FTE from a 1.0 FTE. They think it should be from 0.5 to 1.0.
Yep.
Yeah.
You're right. Okay. Thank you. Anything else? All right, all in favor of those, all 4 minutes with the noted change? Say aye.
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 Excellent. Motion passes. Frank, you're on this.
Okay, thank you. So I met with Marion in person during the break week, and she has been into school quite a bit. She forwarded to me a written report of her activity, which I have a paper copy here. It's pretty long. And it is uploaded into the documents for this meeting. So I noticed you were able to do that for me. Thank you. And I think it speaks for itself. There also was a tech committee meeting today with Elise and Marion attended. And after that meeting, I spent probably 40 minutes on the phone with Marion to get a sense of where she and the tech committee felt things were going and the kinds of things they were dealing with. And it sounded like, Elise, that you had a really productive meeting today in terms of identifying school issues and how you were going to try to handle them, that kind of thing. I asked her specifically about the tickets and how that was going. And she indicated that she has been able to keep up with the immediate tickets and day-to-day things that come in. She spends essentially 2 half days right now in the building, along with extra time here and there.
Can I just interrupt? Where is that report? I was trying to find
Somewhere's
it.
in your board documents.
I'm in it.
I'll send it. I don't think she did. I'll send
Yeah,
it.
thank
Oh,
you. That'd be
okay,
great.
sorry.
Thank you. Sorry, I didn't mean to
Oh,
interrupt. I
that's
just wanted
fine.
to be able to look at it.
So in reading that report, since we just went there, it's very techy. She talks about things that she uses acronyms that I don't fully understand, and I don't really intend to fully understand them because that's why we have other people to do those things. But it sounded to me like some major things have been taken care of. A lot of the iPads and the Chromebooks that needed to be updated and reinitialized and reassigned to other people, that kind of thing, so that testing could be done. That has all been completed. So that from a hardware point of view and a software point of view, my understanding is that there are 200 machines that are ready to go to do that. The problem is that there is a connection capacity issue in the internet that she is working with Adam Bristol and also David Allen to try to resolve. And they will come to us eventually with a plan to as to how that should be resolved. So that the immediate teacher need issues are taken care of. The color printer problem is resolved, and that was a issue, as I understand it, that was caused by someone trying to print a document that had software in it that shut the printer down. And so to fix it, you have to shut everything off, and then the printer would work. And the minute that project tried to get printed again, it would shut the printer down. So right now, with everybody going away for the week, right now it's working properly. That article has not, or whatever that project was, has not been tried to be printed again. And so the issue seems resolved, but the problem is there's no way to identify what the source was, where it came from. So she said that if it happens again, that'll take a lot of time to track. Let's see what else was in there. A lot of the tickets are resolved. A lot of them are very similar, and they're based on the capacity issues of the internet. Apple TV, which a lot of people use in their classrooms, changed a login protocol, and a lot of the tickets were related to that issue, and I think that has been resolved. So by resolving a single issue and instructing people how to get logged in a different way, a lot of those have been taken care of. The tickets are being prioritized, and she's working her way back through, trying to deal with the things that are most important first. And indicates to me that people are very cooperative. The work's getting done. There's a lot more to do. She said by no means is, everything done. And she's not there every day, so that's a change. So when people, we're used to having somebody at a moment's notice just walk in to fix something. She's not there to do that. The tech committee today is moving forward with the orders for new equipment that was requested and planned for, so that's happening. There should be no problem with that.
Well, no problem getting the order out, maybe getting it in.
Yeah, getting it in, yeah, well, so the order will go out, but yeah, we're trying to get it in the front end of the supply chain. And I think that's the basic part. So her report lists her days that she's been in, very specific about the work she has done, and the amount of time that she's put in for billing on that. So it should be very clear, if anybody really wants to know, it's there. So I appreciate that. The second project is the survey project. And right now she has returns from 6 schools. She's trying to encourage and run down a few more. We talked about doing that presentation to the board and the tech committee. We'd like everybody on the tech committee to be present, including David Allen and any of these other folks who are, directly involved with what we're doing, so that everyone gets to hear that. We want to do that at the May meeting, if that's possible to put on the agenda. And from that presentation, and she's probably going to have to Zoom in for that because she will not be in town. But she said she is willing to do that so that we don't have to hold it up. At that point, we're going to have to then develop a process as to how we bring that information to decision-making about what we want to do in terms of positions and what the job duties are for those positions and how you want to approach tech going forward. I would like to involve John because as the new principal, he's going to have to manage that. And he also has a lot of tech knowledge, so he may have a very, have input that could be really valuable to us. So that's that's the timeline with that right now. And so we'll do the presentation. I think that's the 19th of May. And at that point, we'll work on a process also as to how we want to move forward. Maybe a combined committee, a group of people to sit down and take all that data after the conversation and process that into an action plan. But certainly would like to try to get it straightened out for opening of next year. So I'm pretty pleased. I think she's been working really hard for us. And, I think, yeah, so I guess we're going well.
So let's go back up to the other parts on the agenda. Totally just apologize. So, Elise, can you let me share the, I will make you the host, so please bear with us because this is our first time doing this.
I want to try to share my screen for the online people and set up for in here. So I'll give you all, pass a paper copy of the strategic plan to everyone so that it's easier to follow along with me. And then I'll share my slideshow with you afterwards, so you don't read ahead or it can keep your attention, right? Well, it's something about my privacy not allowing it to record. Yeah, something. So anyways, I'll just put my screen on the Shawinigan board for the live people. I'm glad you're here today. You're a pro at this one. I'm sure you've all reread the strategic plan for tonight. Okay, I think I can present from here, my, hopefully not in anyone's way. So, I first thought I would say that just give us a timeline again, because it's a unique timeline for a strategic plan, but in my second year of work here, the committee work started on, and stakeholder surveys on updating and making of this current strategic plan. And that was 2018-19. And then it was published for year 2019-20. We have the new strategic plan in place that school year. And then of that same school year, we locked down in March. So there a lot of work that was started kind of stopped at that point. I just put in parentheses there, during COVID shutdown, I did find an Asana app, which I don't know if anyone's aware of that, but it's a project management application. So it was really helpful to take a document. I know that Yola has seen where Jeff and I had started to be like, okay, well, if we're going to address this, then we need this action. And then this is the person responsible. And then they'll need to do these 5 things and then report to this person so that they can take it from there. And it's a huge management piece. So I took the strategic plan and all the actions that we had said and put it on the free version of the Asana app. And we were, at least took the time to do that in those months that we were shut down. Then last year, 2020 to 21 was obviously our COVID year of challenges. In terms of work on a strategic plan, that was very hard to do because we were troubleshooting everything else and lightening the load of our teachers so that they could learn to teach again through all the mitigations that we needed to do. Then this year, it's a transition year for the administration, and now looking ahead at next year, again, we'll have a new principal and changes in our admin structure. So that being said, you'd think we would have nothing done on the strategic plan, but I'm really proud to say that we have a lot of work done. So I'm just going to go through, and I've taken the recommendation that was in the strategic plan and the action, and then what I have to show the work for, then I can. So with the recommendation, again, it was, asking us to do, define our success. We always say Lyme School's an excellent place and we turn out, great students. And how are we going to communicate that and how are we going to, prove it really? And so we started, Jeff and I started on, well, define that criteria and get those data points is tricky to do and hard to do in isolation, just being my part now, being the admin team and with Mickey. But we did start looking at data points that we could collect and started with Hanover High School data right away that to get in place. And each year the guidance department fills out this for us in terms of what our Lyme graduates are, how they're succeeding in the Lyme school. And so, sorry. So it's small, and you'll get this, and you'll be able to look at it on your computer later at your leisure. But we have across the bottom, we started in 1920, then 2021, and then we have it set up for this year. But they did look back a year for us at least, and so we were looking at how many were enrolled, how many transferred out, how many graduated from Hanover, the college acceptance rate, the average number of classes. There's one note here how it was figured for the earlier years. The average number of classes, honors classes taken by Lyme students, then their SAT, reading and math and total scores for at least that year, this year, and this year. So that's a starting place that we have for data that we can start to say, look, we're sending on some pretty well-prepared kids to Hanover High and they're doing well. So you can take a closer look at that.
And at least, are you planning to do that at the other schools that we sent as well?
Well, we picked Hanover first just because it's our majority of our kids, and I would like more input on what's next. This was just a start, and
Right.
I'm just
curious.
do we want to take all of our high school students everywhere? And it does rely on someone that's going to follow through on the high school end, because they have to go through that data first.
So,
I forgot to mention, I will take questions after each recommendation, so, no, that's good.
I did it at the right point.
Yeah. I think we still have work to do on defining that criteria and what defines our success. I think we could take board input on that. And really, like, what is it we want to know about how well our students do, and what other, data points can we get? And, does it always have to be hard data? Like, what do we need to show that we're successful?
Are they willing to give you the SAT scores?
It's an average.
Oh, it's an average.
Yeah.
So on that point, schools that receive tuition-based schools, when you have choice like this, they are required under New Hampshire statute to report the data that you determine what it is you want to see. They don't get to tell you, well, no, I'm not going to give you that. No, if you want to see SAT data, you can do that. You have to protect the individual children. There is FERPA laws, so you have to protect privacy. But other than that, you can. So I received, my other school, I received reports, student 1, student 2, student 3. And then we don't want to go spend a lot of time on this tonight, but end of year transcripts are great. They tell you a ton about kids.
Any other questions about recommendation number 1? So recommendation number 2, again, I want to mention, I was really happy when the strategic plan was updated, and it gave me much direction and definition to my job. So I like strategic plans. So this one was to continue to improve our curriculum instruction. It mentions regular application of principles of learning and habits of mind. And there is a note on the back, on the second page of that document, kind of explaining what these are. But these are things that were put in place by my predecessor that really just kind of just a constant reminder to educators of what is good education, and what are we striving for, like the bigger picture of learners. And so the action under that was to explore with faculty strategies of deeper learning in an inquiry-based curriculum, and that emphasizes self-direction and authentic assessment. There's a lot there, a lot of buzzwords for education, but what it really means is kids really being invested in learning and having their own questions, their own inquiry, and wanting to find out information about something that hopefully they're passionate about, and showing their learning in an authentic or meaningful way, rather than some of our traditional ways that just a test or a reporter. And one of the first things that I started to work on was the, our inquiry and research curriculum, like we really needed to define, okay, well, what should a end of K do research and inquiry? What should end of grade 1, grade 2? And so this was just giving us a roadmap. So if I'm going to have teachers work on, inquiry, then what's the expectation for inquiry at each of these different levels? So we have that and draft. We usually keep it a draft for a long time because we need to work with it to be able to say, yeah, this is really what we're doing. The other action is develop a common understanding of deeper learning and what we're promoting. And so on our Thursdays, we have opportunities to have had some book study groups. And so one of the book studies that we've done, and I think some of the board members have already seen some of these, but Making Thinking Visible. This is a well-known book that gives strategies that cross grade levels and cross subject areas of really how we're getting kids to think, show their thinking, talk about their thinking, and build upon each other's thinking at all levels, from kindergarten through high school. And so our staff all read this book, all was in a study group together, and tried out and brought evidence back to our meetings and shared successes and how they were implementing some of these thinking routines. But it just usually involves a very visual way for kids to put their ideas down, and then a way to share them together and build off of each other's. And if they grow in just kind of from a short brainstorming to comparisons and contrasts and adding on to different people's ideas and such. So that was that book. This other one was Make Just One Change, and this was bringing more inquiry into the classroom and giving it more ownership to the students instead of teachers assigning classic research topics. It's getting more of a focus into students being curious themselves and developing researchable questions. And so our faculty have all read this and worked on a question formulation technique. And again, these are strategies that can be from kindergarten through any grade, and how to refine those questions and what are researchable and what are short answer questions and questions that could take longer research. So those are two things that towards that action there. And another one was with deeper learning, and what we're promoting is all of our lower school teachers took a How to Learn Math course, it was called, from a famous educator, Joe Bowler, out of Stanford. That was a lot of promoting sharing your thinking and verbalizing your reasoning in math, and showing visually what you're working on, and bringing more discussion and visualization to add in if we into math instruction. So, and now we're a site for the Barnes Initiative Research into Deeper Learning, which is out of UVEI, and that's where a number of educators from the Upper Valley get together and bring a problem of practice. And they're doing a problem of practice right now, which is, how do we get deeper learning into schools? And so we have a faculty member that is taking part in that research. It's action research with fellow educators. They look at the problem, they look at the current research, they come up with solutions and share them and how they're working in their schools, and coming back and sharing their successes, and probably publishing their research together in another publication. And I think I've shared this with the board before, but this one is, this shows a lot of the research across the grades. It was a news article that our library media specialist did. It shows a number of the projects that we have done in research and the kids showing their learning. And again, another way that they're showing their learning and presenting it is through podcasts. I do have to put a plug in for this recent one, the first grade animal research podcast. If you click on that, I think you'll really enjoy it, and you'll get to hear all of the kids sharing what they researched and the facts that they learned.
So Elise, can I ask a question? Just
Mhm.
I'm curious. With all of these elements, are you going to try to track? I don't know how you track it, but just thinking out loud, how these different modalities then play out and, you know, do you see a difference in sort of the engagement of the kids, the interest of the, again, I'm just
Yeah.
curious, like, how do you take this, what sounds like really cool stuff,
Right.
and then see how it impacts the kids?
I don't know. I mean, I haven't been asked to track it.
No, I know, I
Yeah.
wasn't, but I was just more, it made me curious, you know, when you're saying like, how do you measure the outcomes, right? And
Mhm.
this is sort of, to me, a lot of it's qualitative, but yet you could probably see it, I don't know if you could see it in a, I mean, maybe I'm just being crazy, but I just got curious when you were
Yeah.
presenting that part.
I don't know. And what I do know is that it's contagious. I mean, at least the kids and the teachers' enthusiasm. I mean, the first grade decided to do podcasts because at our in-service, they were sharing what the sixth grades had done in their passion projects and podcasts. And so then the first grade teachers were like, well, I think we could do, podcasts too. And so that is contagious and that's great. When teachers share in our in-service times or in our meeting times, there's a lot of cross-pollination.
Well, so that's huge. I mean, that's
Yeah.
something, I guess
Yeah.
it's more qualitative.
Right, right. And that's the beauty of at least our Thursday time when we can have, the K-8 together. That's where a lot of the book studies go and it forces us to get out of the minutia of the division level meetings and really think about what are we doing here as educators and, how can we support each other and, can you as a third grade teacher be, sitting in a group and still sharing your ideas with someone that's going to use it in eighth grade and, because a lot of times we meet by division for all the day-to-day stuff.
That makes sense. So you took it out of the day
Yeah.
to day. Yeah.
And at some point, your outcomes are going to change.
Well, I would
Yeah,
think,
yeah,
that's why
and so,
that's why I
yeah.
was saying, like, how do you look at something like that and what it's delivering
And
and
making
then
that
trying to, creating the connection, which
It's
is
really,
not an
yeah, it's
easy.
hard to do, yeah.
Yeah, but it's cool. It's
Yeah.
totally cool to think about. So, sorry, once
No,
again.
that's
I'm
fine. And I do
opening my
have to,
mouth.
I have to say, a lot of the inquiry research, that a lot of that is going through the work of the library media, tech integrators, with the teachers, meeting weekly and planning together and getting that going. So, using our specialists in the way that we can leverage, the deeper learning that way. Again, the other under recommendation to also design a long-term plan for subject area and grade level curriculum review. In most schools, curriculum review gets on these cycles that are hard to get off of, but also they kind of just go like, this year we're doing math, next year we're doing language arts, they're in the cycle of this year we're exploring what's new in math, and then we're going to adopt in math, and then we're going to, but they go by each subject, whether you need it or not. And I think, our school being as small as it is, and if we did it that way, we would have every teacher in a curriculum review cycle every year. Because in our lower school, if you're the only grade level teacher, and we're going to do math one year, and then we're going to do science next year, you're going to be reviewing curriculum all the time. So it doesn't really work that well, but it doesn't mean we shouldn't have something in place. So what I've come up with and hoping to really put in place for our curriculum review that we're doing for reading next year is really kind of just looking at scoring ourselves first on these general questions. Well, is it, it might be that parts of our curriculum are still really good and we don't have to go through a full review, but we really need to revisit our philosophy or revisit our materials because they're outdated, or look at our assessments or the data that we're getting so that we can improve instruction and really drill down in some areas. Because typically a curriculum review could be, you look at everything and everything is reviewed and maybe all your materials go and all your new materials come in. But so In this sense, I would like to have the Lime School be looking at these and maybe simultaneous, like, let's look at this, let's review answer these questions in terms of reading for sure, because that's what I'm really focused on. But why not answer it in terms of science too? Because we might be able to start working on some of these pieces in science. So there are things about the skill level appropriate, the assessments up to date. Are they showing high engagement? Is it the resources current? Those types of things. In reviewing, sometimes we just start general, what's your favorite part? It's hard for teachers sometimes to be like, I really love this about my curriculum and now you're gonna take it away. But some of our reading resources are 1988, some of our basals, which still a lot of good stories don't change, but they, we want to change some of it for, because there's some good stuff out there.
Is this connected to, you were talking about the English, or I don't know, the curriculum, we were rolling over a lot of the reading because it was so old.
Yeah,
Is this
Yes.
what you're
Yeah.
referring?
Yeah.
I
and this
only
is why
know it
there's a
from the
big
budget
budget
thing.
line for reading for next year.
Was it, we had something from the 1990s, right? And now or
Right,
something like, and now we're bringing it up
right.
current, right?
Exactly.
I just want to
Yeah.
connect the
And a
dots.
lot of approaches to early literacy have changed in the last decade for sure, that are more research-based now. We also, in terms of long-term plan for curriculum development, all teachers in this, that teach writing, or not all just teach writing, but all of our teachers that work with students in a curriculum area, not necessarily a specialist area, are trained in the writing revolution now. It's an approach to teaching writing that is supported by a lot of research. There's a link to it there that you that I've put in that you can see that explains the approach, but it essentially takes students, and again, this is a K-12 type approach. It takes students starting at the sentence level and really working with solid sentences and building very strong sentences that add in a positives, which is, Yola, the school board chair was present tonight, right? And that positive there, we teach that really early. So kids already are starting to make more mature sentences, putting in a dependent clause and, in your sentence early on. And then they naturally learn not always, but naturally learn the commas. And so we're giving them a lot of scaffolds and structures in place to build your sentences, good solid sentences, and then we give them a scaffold for good solid paragraphs that have, there's a method for teaching a good topic sentence, there's a method for teaching a good concluding sentence, and building the solid paragraph. Those of you who have parents might hear what's the acronym, the SPO. So a single paragraph outline. And so kids might say, I have to work on my SPO. And that was the goal, is to get the same structure, the same, it's not really program, but the same approach in place across grade levels so that we can build on those structures that the kids are really familiar with. And then that will lessen the cognitive load of what writing really asks you to do, because there's so much that writing's asking you to do, to bring in the facts and to get it on paper and to figure out how to spell it, that if they have the structures in place that they're like, oh yeah, I need to do this first when I make a topic sentence, and I need to do this, then it shows that their writing can improve greatly. So I'm really proud that we have this now K-8, and we have our math and science teachers in the middle school also trained in it, because a lot of the formats and scaffolding for it can be practiced in the subject area classes as well. So if you're teaching science, you can have the kids practice writing different types of sentences with the content that you just did. One that's very common is You write a sentence with because, then you write a sentence with but, and you write a sentence with so. So for example, if you're learning about matter, matter changes when when it's heated because, matter changes when it's heated, but, and so it gets the kids to think and bring in the appropriate ending of that sentence. So it's showing their thinking skills, but also practicing good solid sentences. So we're now taking, because everybody's using the same approach, we're now taking writing samples 3 times a year across a grade level. And so I'm tracking it so that you can see, sorry, it's a little bit tough, but you can see, so we did like first grade, okay, in October, 2 strengths. I could ask them, show, take your whole class. What are 2 repeating strengths that you saw across your class? What are 2 things that you notice your class really needs to work on? And then same thing, second, third, fourth, all the way through 8th. So you can see by 8th, they're working on, 2 strengths they thought were use of transitions and use of subordinate conjunctions. That would not have showed up before we started doing the writing revolution, because those are 2 things that are very stressed in the program and really important for more mature writing. And we're still working on spelling capitalization, complete sentences. And then we have February's results, and we can go back, and then we're set up for June. So that's the writing revolution. So along with writing, we also are getting aligned with the other parts of writing that aren't just the ideas and sentences, and that's like the punctuation and the all the other things that come in with grammar, punctuation, capitalization, that type of work. So this is red means it's introduced, and green means they should probably know it by the end of that grade. So this is just helping teachers stay on top of, for example, in 6th grade, they have a number of things to introduce, and the kids should be able now to be able to use parentheses in the dash.
At least when you have those charts, red and green, does that go into the kids' assessment too, so the parents sort of understand what you're trying to introduce and what you're trying to get mastered, so they.
Right, well,
Have a
teachers
sense.
would be definitely assessing, like, is this mastered now?
And
Because
then
it should
and
be
then like
mastered in
it's
my grade level.
translated to the parents so that they sort of understand where their kid. how they're-
Typically, in a report card, they would say,
Report
like,
card, okay.
or in their narrative, like, concerned still because they should know this, like, this is grade level expectation. So this helps teachers know who's teaching it, and what their grade level expectation is, so that they're calibrating themselves.
Makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah.
Sorry, I keep interjecting, I just get curious.
No, I'm happy to have people curious. Oops.
And I also
then-
just make a comment also, that is, I think, our school is perhaps somewhat unique just in terms of parent involvement and interest in what their children are learning or what they are expecting to learn too. And I know we do have an idea of benchmarks. I think it would be helpful for the parents also to know what those year-end benchmarks would be, so that they can, they know the children quite well
I think
too.
the hardest part for me, I think when I've been asked that before in other schools is, the granularity of how much this could be, like, some schools have made like little pamphlets and then given you a little bit, it's hard to know how much, and I'd love to, be able to get input on that from non-educators, to be like, well, what is it parents really want to know, right? And that, I guess, is worth knowing to be able to follow what's going on in the classroom, but not be like, whoa, you didn't cover exactly that, right? I think that sometimes people are a little worried about that. Like, I'm going to give this document out, and then you're not going to see it, which, education can sometimes get not the exact same sequence or timing, depending on the class or what's happening. So anyways, okay, so part of this improving curriculum instruction was, another action was to continue to integrate design thinking into the regular curriculum. And just to remind some of the people that weren't on the board when we made this change is we had a typical computer lab and in, I think also 2018, we changed into the design lab, and we wanted to move away from teaching tech in isolation because we found that it's better to have it integrated into the classroom in a more meaningful way when kids are using it. And so design thinking is around, knowing how to taking a problem, designing a solution for it. Oftentimes it's for someone else, so that having that empathy of like, what would this person need and how can I design something to solve that problem, and working through iterations is also a big part of design thinking. Like, can we create that better? What would we do next time? And before we could integrate that, because we have design lab and we have a lot of things that go in there, but also Brian works on integrating it into our other classes. And before we could really integrate any of our specials, that I felt like we really needed to have the curriculum maps that would just give everybody a snapshot of what topics are taught in every classroom. So these are all the curriculum maps that tell you all of the topics. So this might be something, I don't know, but these are more topics and not so much skill oriented, but for example, it goes by month, and by month, by subject area, and you can see going across what the focus is. And so for like design lab or art or music, they typically would look through here and say like, oh, I see they're going to be doing this in social studies, like what's it mean to be a good citizen at school or at home, and make some way to connect in with their curriculum. So these curriculum maps are shared with our specialists. Everybody has access to them, so they can see what everybody's teaching in school and when. So I felt like that was a first step to get any type of good integration done. So Brian has given me these slides, so you get a little relief from my text-heavy slides. But so he sharing that his design thinking is supporting and enriching the regular curriculum, the designs for others with authentic problem solving, and again, moving away from passive consumer to proactive designers, creators. And he's just sharing some of his successes here with supporting regular curriculum. So third grade's done some work with the Historical Society and Lyme history. So they made gristmill models. Fifth grade, you can see survival shelters when they were reading Gary Coulson's survival, books that have a survival theme in them. And the middle school has been doing some projects with the young ones, with making some sleds and things like that. And this is the sleds that they made for the Lyme preschool. Working for sorting trash, just finding authentic problems that they can work on. And then changing from not consuming information all the time to producing it to share with others, working on coding and robotics. So this is an area where we've spent time and money, and so I think we could look back through the slides, and Brian's always coming up with something new. Questions? I'm almost done. So the recommendation number 3 has to do with technology. The action was to develop a technology philosophy statement. We've developed, as you have in the whole plan that I've linked here, but our technology statement is brief, but then it has some descriptors with it. So really it's just balanced, authentic and intentional integration of technology. So we really thought a lot about that we wanted integration in there and that it would be authentic, not just, it would be like a real reason to be using technology and it's a driver of innovation and learning. We really want kids to be using it to help them learn independently. A lot of things we have in technology now can change reading levels, can help people access information more easily. That helps the kids to be more independent. As I mentioned, I think earlier at the board meeting, the first graders were doing research. They each had a Google slide. They were accessing it on their own. They were listening, watching a video about their animal and taking notes and reading resources that were curated for them. But the technology helped them be independent with that. Reliable information, communicating safely, collaboration. So I'm looking at authentic audiences. So we're headed. And we have another action was to define how we use technology in practice and include a developmental progression of skills. We have that. And it goes across through the grade levels. Again, it's we mark it all draft until we really work through it for a while. And then develop a process for providing professional development to support implementation of technology practices and philosophy. 2018-19, all middle school was required to use Google Classroom. There was a learning curve for a number of our teachers at that point. Now everyone uses it in Google Classroom. I think makes its way definitely down through 3rd grade. Maybe probably down through 3rd at least, right? Yeah. So that's just an electronic way. Most of you probably know of how kids can access their assignments and hand-in assignments, even access resources. We also have started one-to-one Chromebooks in the middle school. But before that, we didn't have one-to-one devices. So from 2018 is when we started one-to-one. So there was a learning curve in itself right there of professional development because the teachers, had the kids with the devices and the management and implementation and their teaching naturally changed without everyone being able to have a computer with them. The pandemic skills was the next year, which that was just the pandemic really fast forwarded all of our tech skills for teachers. Google Meet, Seesaw, even for our youngest kids. And, just a glimpse at, this is just a list. These are videos of how to do, and these are mostly all of the things that our teachers learned to do when we went remote. How to use Google Meet, how to use the camera app on the Chromebook, how to submit to Google Classroom, setting up your Seesaw classroom. So all of these things came out of the pandemic, which has a silver lining to that. And last year we had a incentive for some teachers that wanted to become Google Level 1 certified, with 5 staff members that did that. And we also put into hired for a 0.5 FTE tech integrator to help us with our tech integration. Recommendation number 4 was to identify and implement strategies of differentiation. All of these actions under differentiation, which is a term I think that the board was really familiar with when I got here. People were like, okay, we need to make sure we are on the same page with what that means. This document just answers all of those actions, what our philosophy is, what our interventionists do, the scope of their service, the schedule of their intervention assessments, when they're testing, what they're testing with, in early literacy, and, reading levels and screening kids so that we're not losing any of our K2 kids that are falling below grade level, because our goal is to make sure everyone's on grade level by 3rd grade if we can. So, And one of the main things that we stressed in this document is that literacy and math are equal in terms of our intervention focus. And so we've been working to bring the math up because for traditionally, reading intervention got a lot of attention. And now we're saying, math intervention is just as important. And so there's screenings done at the same time for math. And then there's school-wide screenings that are tracked by progress that are 3 times a year. Some other classroom math assessments that teachers are doing that are keeping track of the math skills. And we're looking at piloting a screening for number sense, because with number sense, if students have if their abilities aren't strong in number sense, and as they move forward and higher up in their skills, that's where we can see kids start to lose some of their math ability because they didn't have that strong foundation. So if we can screen for that early on, we can keep that foundation strong so they can build on. And recommendation, also the action said to process to orient classroom aids to their specific assignments. I'm not overseeing the aids, but I do know that we make sure that we have transition meetings at the end of the school year and the beginning, so that they're learning their new roles and the students that they have. This year we've used early release days that our math and our reading interventionists had when we had conferences. They did the training for our aides in reading and math. We've evaluated the schedule in terms of supporting differentiation. In the last few years, working on the schedule, we've set 60 minutes. And, we've set it as the people who built the schedule that it's a required amount of time in each grade level for language arts and math daily. And it's a set time so that we know that our interventionists can come in and everybody's schedules can work that way. It wasn't always that case, but now it's more streamlined so that we can get our support in when we need to, and we can make sure we have the right amount of time set aside for 2 very important subjects. And in middle school, we have moved to 75-minute instructional blocks in the time that I've been here, and we put call back into the schedule so that students can get help from teachers, which is a study hall time that they're with their advisor, but advisors or teachers can also invite other students in to work with them to get some extra help while the kids are doing their homework. And aligning individual education goals with classroom learning objectives whenever possible. That is one of the actions I have not worked on. So the annual school-wide professional development plan, develop one. I would say that I built the school's instructional goals off of the strategic plan, but we have not had the structure in place yet of how we want that collaboration or that input from teachers to come in, because I think the action was stated as develop a process to collaborate on the development of the institutional instructional goals. So the collaboration part, I'm probably still working on, but these instructional goals really were based on the strategic plan, and that's what's guiding what we do together as a staff in terms of professional development. And action for school-wide professional development also had that they should meet annually with the academic director, teachers, to identify their professional development goals aligned to the institution. And this year, these are all, each teacher gave me 3 goals. We talked about it, worked on it, talked about them together. I took the names off for now, but you can see, that there's a lot. That was all in September, and then I sent them back out to them in February. It was a nice reminder. But remember you said you were still working on this, so, and that's what we did there. And then develop a means by which faculty can demonstrate and celebrate the implementation of the school's initiatives. I have not worked on. And then the next ones I'm skipping because they're six, the stewardship ones are not, they're more the boards. And then, so develop more opportunities for community members to engage in school activities on recommendation 9 and witness student work. So I think we have more work to do here, but I think we have a good start in terms of connecting to the community through our website because of COVID and a virtual presence. Before we've had the 5th grade science adaptations unit where we always invited in some experts, and but I think we have more work to do in that area. Connecting parents and community members to student projects through units involving community groups is another action. A number of our grade levels do projects now through the Lyme Historical Society. We've had the Lyme Pen Pal project happen 3 years. We still have our 4 Winds program, and we have a pretty robust rock band program going now with some of Toby's volunteer time and some of his time paid. But I think we're getting better at accessing the community and inviting them in and tapping into to what they can offer us, but I think we can do more. And right before COVID, we had let teachers know that, yes, we want you annually to offer something that will engage the community in the learning process, or at least a celebration and share a project and invite parents in. And we shared that expectation. They say once a year, please do this. And then COVID hit, so we're not doing that. And then the other one was consistent practices of regular communication between the classroom and the greater school community. I think you might see now that you get a weekly email from your lower school teacher, and middle school and specialists post news on a regular rotation on our website. So that's the progress we've made in that area. Always, we can always communicate more. And I'm sure that's an area we can still work on. I haven't worked on the means by which the institution communicates with the community, although I try myself to put something out to parents weekly. And more work can be done on that. Explore how the Lyme School can become a community learning hub in collaboration with local organizations. We haven't done any work in that area. So looking ahead to next year, another year of the strategic plan, I'm hoping that we will continue with these same instructional goals, because there's still more to do in terms of inquiry-based learning at each grade level, more to do with information literacy and research, and more to do with differentiation involved with instruction, literacy, and math. And we're more looking at that as a focus for middle school too, that we can possibly do some more with small group instruction in middle school to meet some of our differentiation needs. I think we have more to do, focus on these tasks with reviewing the reading curriculum, still tracking our writing skills, looking for more opportunities to work with the community and develop more integrated projects across the grades while leveraging the technology that will help us communicate with wider audience. Sorry to take so long, but I think
That was
this is
great.
the most
Thank you.
important thing of the school.
Yeah.
That's what we want our meetings to be about. Thank you. I think it's kind of amazing given COVID that all of that's been done. Right? And I don't know, I speak for myself, but thank you. Next on our agenda is COVID report. I saw Katie's on. I don't know if Frank, are you speaking? Is Katie speaking? Katie.
Yep, I'm here. So currently for COVID, we have 10 positive individuals in our school community. And it's not unexpected given the current situation in our area
But we continue to align ourselves with and follow the New Hampshire Department of Health and Human Services guidelines regarding isolation and quarantine protocols when a positive case is identified. Our health mitigations continue to include optional masking, hand washing, and we continue to ask students and staff to screen for any symptoms and to stay home and get tested when necessary. We still offer weekly asymptomatic PCR testing every Thursday through our program with UNH. And I'll send a weekly email to Lime School families and staff with an up-to-date positive case count for the entire school population. Any questions?
No. Any questions?
I'm wondering if she's seeing any trends.
Within the school?
Yes. Increasing, decreasing, stable, the way it's been.
Well, no, we have just come back from our break, and so I would say the majority of those cases happened over the April break. So I would say the trend is that we're increasing positive case counts, but not necessarily a reflection of transmission within school day. So I would say a reflection of local numbers and increasing cases, people traveling, less mask wearing, getting together. So but nothing within our school.
That's great. Anyone else have questions? Thank you, Katie. Faculty and staff report. There's anything more, and that was a great principals report. So I can't imagine
I have
getting
a
much more.
question just about that,
Yeah.
just because I didn't understand, when it says if requested, does that mean if you request it, or if the faculty or
I think
staff
that-
request it, and should they do that by a certain time?
I think that it's more in my, well, the way I read it, because I copied and pasted from another board chair, is that if there's something to report out, like third grade is doing this great project, and like that kind of thing, to just kind of share stuff. So, okay, financial report.
Me? Okay, so I sent out, I guess we'll start with the teacher stipend report. So this report is good up until April 22nd, which is this Friday, so it includes this payroll. Currently, we're at 200.25 additional hours at a total cost of $9,377.88. I did upload all the documents. Yes. Okay.
And where did you upload it? Just so I know.
That's in the board.
Documents for
Yeah,
meetings.
for this
Okay,
meeting.
got it.
If you look at the agenda, it's that like.
I know, I did the link and it doesn't show those, so I'm just, okay.
They are in there though, right? In the right spot? Okay. And then move on to the revenue. If nobody has any questions on that, move on to the revenue report. So this is as of the 19th. For the general fund, we have unanticipated revenue of $47,121. Most of that is coming from individual tuition, but we have received the scholarship income, which we get every year in the spring. So that has come in. Food service, we're catching up with our claims in food service. So the March claim has been entered and it actually just came in today, so it's not reflected on this report. So we have one more additional claim that's not on here. But we're short as far as the food service revenue side, $27,169. And then the special revenue funds, instead of trying to project
what we possibly could be getting, like I have been doing all year. We're getting actually closer to real numbers, which is great for me. So the received to date is the second column. That is the grant revenue that we have received. In the projected column, these numbers reflect our expenditure side. And just to give a more clear picture of what has been submitted to the state. So not all of it has been submitted, but the journal entries are actually being made. The ESSER 3 grant, even though it's been approved since February, I have only had the ability to enter a claim just a little bit over a week ago. So that was the first time I've been able to get into the system, and it allowed me to enter a claim. So now I can go back to the beginning of the school year and start to move the wages that were assigned to the ESSER 3 grant and take them out of the general fund, and you'll see it on the expenditure side, but take them out of the general fund and move them into the grant monies, and then that prompts us to be able to put in the claim from the state. So we're moving forward. It's a great relief from my perspective. So with the general fund, the food service fund, and the grant revenue fund, we have a total so far of 125,904 in unanticipated revenue. Does anybody have any questions on the revenue? On the expenditure report, so I did send the ADS report, which looks like this. So I always want to, this is the actuals when you're looking at it, just so you know. But I use my tools, so in which I encumber things that don't necessarily have a purchase order, but I'm also have the ability to release things that are encumbered that don't necessarily need to be encumbered. So we have some line items for health buyouts. That's just an example. Health buyout line items that would have been paid out in December, but then certain people didn't qualify. So they sit in the encumbrance line, but they will never be paid out because we're done with that function for this year. And so they sit there. So in this tool, I took those expenses out. So I have the ability to do that. High school instruction, we've had another adjustment. We had some students leave Hanover, but then it also impacted vocational tuition. So that bill was just paid very recently. So our deficit in high school at this point is now 95,484. So that would be the most that we could take draw from trust. And one thing I wanted to ask is if we could have a finance committee meeting before the next board meeting. The next board meeting, we need to have the public hearing to accept unanticipated revenue and also to transfer from trust. And so it'd be great if we could have a meeting in between, because our plan is high school trust, post-retirement benefit trust, and maintenance trust, and how much those dollar amounts would be. So if we could talk about that, that would be terrific. In the far right-hand column, just after food service, right now we're looking at an anticipated deficit in the general fund of 118,599. The grant monies are balancing off to the revenue side. So just talking about the general fund, the 118,599. If we draw from transfers of trust, post-retirement benefit trust of 36,000, high school trust 95,484, and maintenance trust of 33,000. That will give us revenues of 164,484. And so right now I have a general fund projected balance of 45,884, which is a lot better than it has been. And so that's really the movement of the grant dollars and closing out purchase orders that aren't going to happen, those sorts of things. So as long as I feel better. I do feel better. So nervous. I've been so nervous. So I'm feeling a little bit better because I can actually see the grant monies moving forward and having that People are laughing at me. So I think that's it for me, unless anybody has any questions.
We are smiling with you. We're
Okay,
happy. with you.
just takes a little bit of pressure off. It's not like so close.
Nice to see a positive number in that
Yeah.
bottom right-hand corner.
All right, so jumping back down to the business part of our meeting. To B, I'm gonna change the wording onto, it'd be an on-call sub, but do I have a motion to approve an on-call substitute position for the next month? Moved by Boylston,
Second.
second by Vogel. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Excellent. Passes. Next one is approval of the FY 23 federal grants assurances. Do I have a motion to approve them?
I move.
Moved by Vogel, second by Boylston. Any further? I'm gonna ask Janet if you would give us a little bit of an idea of what this is about, because not everybody knows.
Yep, so the document's also in the folder. The federal grant assurances for FY 2023 really just is an explanation of the rules and regulations required for using any federal grant money. It goes over all the CFR documents and requirements. And by signing this, we're basically saying that we are going to comply with the federal government's rules and regulations and spending of any federal money. And if you approve this, then the school board chair would sign and the superintendent would sign for the 2023 school year.
Means that we follow the rules.
As long as you're on the hook for the compliance.
Any other questions? Any questions about it? All in favor?
Aye.
Excellent, motion passes. The next item on the agenda is the committee assignments. I have sent everybody a list of what, it was in an email, and I'm happy to read them out loud. But do I have a motion to approve the list? Well, it's not gonna be exactly as I had sent it out, so I'm not sure how to do this. Why don't I do the present what I'm proposing? So for policy, I will be chair, and on that committee will be Elizabeth and Jonathan. We're basically going to continue chugging along in terms of the charge of it, and we're going to be working on getting board docs up and running ASAP so that we don't have to do double, triple, quadruple duty on it. For personnel committee, Hayes will be chair, and I'm going to ask Jim to be on it as well. With the focus being the superintendent evaluation to solidify a process, which should be simpler since we're not combining two positions, and an exit interview process. And potentially the FTE balance, kind of looking at the FTEs, and I think that's going to be a project for everybody though. Communications committee, also asking Hayes to chair that and having Vince on board with that as well. Looking at board docs, kind of we'll work out together. I think that I'll probably be starting off with that with the policy part, but it's going to involve getting all of the OWL stuff, and all of our board documentation will be on board docs, which will be part of communication. It's going to ease communication with the public as well. On high school committee, initially I had sent out that, oh no, I did not send it out with a change. I will ask that Jen be chair of that and Elizabeth to sit on it. The purpose would be, the goal would be to look at the surpluses of the sending districts and if there's any chance that we could recoup some of the costs if there are huge surpluses. And also start looking at contracts and doing some research behind the contracts. In facilities, we have Jim chairing it, and I've asked Elizabeth to sit on it. Elizabeth has a lot of knowledge on the 5-year plan from the finance committee from the previous year. And it's going to be looking at the finance, the 5-year plan And I think Frank has actually already started talking about it, so. And finally, the finance committee, Jonathan will be chair, and sitting on it will also be Jen and Vince, and of course, that focuses budget. So that's that. The last thing would be the budget, the representative to the budget committee, that should be a part of that committee assignments, and I'm gonna ask Jen to be the committee rep for that. So, do I have a motion to approve all of that, what I just said?
I'll move it.
President Burke moves it, and I have a second.
I'm happy to second that.
Okay, Boylston seconds. Is there any further discussion? And all in favor of everything that I described?
I,
Excellent. Any nays? Any abstention? Okay. The next item is Wellness Committee. So Wellness Committee, we had talked about previously to make it a school-based committee. I have reached out to Lisa Dameron to see if she would chair it. Katie is swamped with COVID stuff, so I didn't want to impose there. Okay, Lisa has sat on this committee for years, and so she's familiar with it. She obviously knows the school very well. She has agreed to do so. This is all, of course, I've been asked, I'm doing this with Frank. And so I have asked if Elizabeth would be willing to sit on that committee. The plan is really to make sure that we have a meeting for minutes purposes so that we're in compliance. And I believe that one of the focus that Lisa would like to take on is wellness and mental health. For the upcoming, she's probably gonna have like 2 or 3 meetings maximum, so that's the plan. Do I have a motion to approve Elizabeth as the board representative on the committee?
Motion.
Moved by Jen, second by Greenway. All in favor, or any further discussion? All in favor? Excellent. And the next action is superintendent plan. So I will start by saying we had a robust superintendent committee. You guys had the committee worked hard. They presented, the candidates. Unfortunately, it didn't seem to work out. So we are at the point where we have 2 options. We can either start a new search at this point. The chances of us finding a great candidate are probably on the slimmer side because we're out of the season. The other alternative would be to go into another interim year. So I've asked Frank if he would be willing to do so, which he has said yes. So I would like to make a motion to approve, to nominate, is it nominate? Frank as our interim superintendent for the upcoming school year to continue on as.
Yes, I would be interested in doing that.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Burke. Is there any further discussion? I did.
So one question I have is that we have you budgeted right now for 0.4, but included in the budget next year was 0.6 for a full-time or for the part-time superintendent. I'm just curious how many hours you would desire, or like, what do you think is,
I think
reasonable to
Sure.
work through the year?
Yeah, I think 0.5 would be good. And I mean, I haven't kept track of my hours because I really don't want to know how many hours.
Yeah.
But I'll do, you do what you need to do to make sure things work smooth. And I try to be here as much as I can, and I'll continue to do that. I think it's really helpful to be on site. I live close enough to make that work.
Yeah.
Do we need to ascribe a fee to that, or can we just move to nominate Frank?
Yeah, because we
I
can
think
work,
you
we
need to,
can,
because I have to do the contract. You need to give it after, because I have to do a contract.
Okay. Well.
Like
so
Danny says, 0.5.
Yeah, it
but
is.
it's within our,
Yeah,
Less than our budgeted amount.
But is that sufficient to get the job done?
I guess
You're of
that's-
course gonna say yes, I know that, but.
I think that's the real question. Is it sufficient and is it ideal? Because we also have, we're in this transition, we're still going to be transitionary. And so the reality is that we don't want to we don't want to set anyone up for failure either.
So, we're bringing on a lot of extra administrative time with the new principal, and we have Elise and myself. I think you're gonna be fine.
Yeah.
Because it's quite an increase from where you've been.
So
Do we need to amend the motion or?
we'll amend.
So I'll amend the motion to appoint, to nominate Dr. Brody as 0.5 FTE superintendent.
Do we need to second that? We need to- Okay,
Second.
for Greenway in case we need that.
And this,
Any further?
this motion, by passing it, is involved in that is the decision that we are not, we're agreeing also to not proceed with another search. So it's all,
At this time.
it's a combined at this
So
time.
we'll start in December.
So we can put together the search committee and get a lot of the, we won't have to be on a time crunch, which would be nice. It could be properly done and slowly. With just more time. Less
Yeah.
pressure.
it feels better to not hire two permanent administrators that work very closely together at the same time. I think this is better, honestly, like it's another silver lining to ascertain that the working styles of everybody will match. It's really important.
It'll be nice to have John's input as well.
That's what I
That'll be
mean,
important.
like having
Right.
a full-time principal already here and being able to weigh in. And knowing how he works and who he works well with, that kind of thing will be really helpful.
Janet, at least you guys are here. Do you have any other thoughts on any of this? No. So all in favor of appointing Dr. Perotti as the interim superintendent for next year at a 0.5 FTE?
Right.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstained? Thank you.
Thank you.
And we'll work on contract stuff out. And so then the last item on our public agenda is the faculty enrollment request. There are 3 of them. And so I don't think we're supposed to use names. So the.
Can we move
How do
3
do it?
together?
We can do all 3 together, representing all of the grades. Yeah. I don't know how we want to do this. But that's why I put it in parentheses if we need to go into non-conflict again.
So I guess it's an
They
overall
are for
question.
different numbers of children, but I think that,
That doesn't matter, right? Because, I mean, we have policy that governs this. And I think the only question is, do all 3 requests conform to policy? The answer is yes, we can probably move them wholesale. Is that right?
I move them both down.
Yeah.
okay. So do I have a motion to approve all faculty enrollment requests?
The only one I had,
I have a question, because I'm not sure what you're looking at. So.
I did
Tuition,
not share them with you.
yeah, the tuition people that I'm aware of, there's only 2 faculty enrollment requests.
Correct.
Okay,
Yeah,
but
there's
you've
a-
got ×3.
There's a third one that has come in. So I'll share that with you.
Okay, so my next question is, because I know nothing,
Yes.
right? So my next question is, do any of the additional students that you're talking about going into the grades that they're entering into next year, put you over an enrollment situation? Because that's a big factor, whether it pushes you into an over class size.
that was my question, which was grade 1. Like
Grade
what's
one's gonna
going,
split,
It's
Mhm.
split.
is it not?
okay,
Right, so that one's solved, but I don't know any of the other.
So how
people,
many totals of how many students are there and there were 3 requests?
Can we put the motion on the table first?
Yeah, thank you.
So I'll move to approve the
I
faculty
already-
enrollment request. Did you move?
I did.
Oh, I'm
Okay.
sorry. Yeah, so Elizabeth.
So you seconded.
Okay, I'll
for me.
second
Thank
it.
you.
Yeah,
Okay,
it's
moved
not-
by
thank you.
Glenshaw, second by Vogel. Sorry about
I
that.
just
Okay.
feel like we should put the motion.
I know, it never got finished.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and the last, actually, so the one thing, the reason why I put the policy into the document folder is that it actually, in a normal year, this should actually be approved by the superintendent. It should not have to come before the board. In the past several years, that has been the practice, which is why I brought it up into the board. So I think moving forward, that will probably revert back to that, but in just the interest of, since that's been happening, we're in an interim situation, I think it makes sense to bring it to the board.
Unless you change your policy, it will go back that way.
Correct, right, so I just wanted to throw that out there, that's why I put it in there, because I read it, and, yeah. So in terms of the students, at least you were saying, Hayes, you had a question.
Yeah, I was just asking how many total students are there and which grades do they fall in?
There's 6, right? Six students. All in-
I think
We already
Might be
have
7.
4 here. There's 2 new, and they would be first and
Only
fourth.
5 here.
Yeah, I think there's 7 total, actually, now that I think about
There's, for next year, there will be
Oh, yeah.
8th grade.
Yeah.
fifth
5 here,
grade,
and there's 2 more, 7.
4, 3, and.
So we already have the 5 students counted in our enrollment for next year, projections for next year. So the new 2 new
it.
students.
What
might
were
be
those, where, because we have to review them every year, so I'm wondering where they fit.
8th grade.
1 and 8?
6, 2 and 8, 1 and 6. 1 and 4th. 1 and 3rd. Actually, it'd be 2 and 4th, 1 and 3rd, and 1 in 1st.
With 7 kids, I'm sorry.
Because there's 5 from.
So we're
So
not-
long as the motion conforms to the policy and the benefits that's in the CBA, I don't see that we have much
Yep,
to debate.
Janet has a question?
We have one outside tuition person too, which is probably already in your count. Did that person come forward and request again for next year?
not yet.
Did they, probably didn't know they should have?
It might be that, I think we'll be doing the tuition, setting tuition next meeting, like you had suggested, so maybe that will be, we can reach out to them to ask that.
Do you feel, I'm just wondering in your question, that these should all be considered together?
You're
Janet?
asking me.
Mhm.
Yeah, well,
In general or going forward, because we do have certain, I don't know what the tipping points are, but you do. I wonder if these do come to us, should they come together? Tuition and non-tuition enrollments.
I just kind of put them all in my brain together. I guess that's what I do. Because if there's a FTE adjustment that I'm still doing tuition bills for those individuals. And so, yeah, I kind of,
I guess maybe the question is, like Jonathan said, if the non-tuition is a benefit in the CBA, just out of curiosity, if you were ever at the precipice, what comes first?
yeah.
Would you always approve the CBA benefit first and then reject the tuition paying student?
Generally, you grandfather people who have existed, so you wouldn't take any new. But you'd probably have to figure out a way to deal with it.
Well, so that's probably a reason to do them all together,
Yeah.
all of the requests.
Yeah.
Because I don't know if we're near tipping points in any of the classes that the grandfather tuition student would be in.
I think we already said that they weren't, right?
Yeah,
But have we discussed
Well, that includes, the numbers include the tuition kid already.
I don't know if that was a definitive answer.
You just have one new family, right? You have
Yeah,
one new
one
family
new
for
family.
next
Yeah,
year.
which is
that's
grade
not
1,
included.
grade 4. Those are the new, everybody else is already here. Yeah.
And those classes weren't close
No,
anyway,
that would
right?
Well, no,
great.
only
One
one
was
because
already
it's,
split.
because it's split. But then the question is, like, as we go forward, are we committing ourselves to keeping this class split?
I think you would want to commit to keeping the class split because it's 24 students and some high needs.
What is the number in third grade, in next year's third grade?
Next year's fourth is where we'd be adding one to, and that would go, it's 19 now.
That's kind of your limit, right? 19, 20, or your policy let you go up to.
For splitting, it's about 20, 25 is the solid. is the
That's a
hard
New
split.
Hampshire rule. That's like, there's like a New Hampshire legal rule and then, but I don't know that we ever really wait to get to that number.
No, I would suggest not, but, yeah.
It depends on the makeup of the class.
But you don't see any problems with what's been discussed here. So I think you're good.
So all in favor of approving the 3 faculty requests? Say aye. Motion passes. And with that, that concludes our public session. It is 8:50 PM. We will be going into non-public session under RSA 91, A, C, and L for 2 different reasons. Thank you to everybody for attending. I will be putting you all into the waiting room in case you feel like waiting until we close the meeting afterwards. Thank you.
They were.